Tonight, our headliner is Casey Wright. Casey is the founder and CEO of Ninja Zone, former Olympic-level gymnastics coach turned entrepreneur who took her parents', as she calls it, the cartwheel shop, and turned it into an internationally known licensing and curriculum development company, as well as having 6 indie area corporate stores. She's a mom, a bonus mom of 4 additional kiddos, one of IBJ's 40 under 40, and she confesses to be an audio book addict like myself. Through the evolution of Ninja Zone, Casey has led her team to develop a system that is challenging the lives of children daily in now over 300 locations throughout the world. The Ninja Zone is offering kids a safe place to be themselves, make mistakes, learn how their bodies move, and pushing the limits of a startup. Casey's challenges her employees to think outside the box, learn from errors, and never stop dreaming. Casey and her staff are prepared to take the world by storm, transfer the lives of children, and turn their energy into ambition, one awesome kid at a time. Please help me welcome Casey Wright to the Spark stage.
Wow, thanks for having me, guys. I am so excited that I get to not only be a part of this next generation, but to get to raise children in this next generation. The opportunities that they have with the information era, the access to knowledge is absolutely incredible. And just to think that our parents and grandparents, it was like their job to teach us things, like, and now our kids can just go to YouTube. So we just have such an interesting, we get to teach them to be resourceful and think bigger. So in thinking about raising the next generation, I thought about, well, how did we come into this world? And when we're brought into this world, we're a lot like that brand new MacBook, right? We're a clean slate. Like this little piece of perfection that doesn't have any like spam or malware or like inappropriate browser history. We're just like kind of perfect. But I think that you can agree we still need some code, right? We need some more programs. We need a user to help program us. We're born with some like existing programming, you know, like the programming that tells our lungs when it's time to breathe and our heart when it's time to beat. And these programs are running in our background the entire time, but we need a user to help give us some more code and really tell us the way that we're gonna see the world. So I kind of look at it as like our parents are like our first programmer. So they get us and they get this pretty baby and doesn't have anything wrong with it, and they start adding code. And that code starts shaping the way we see the world. They then hire like a team of programmers, right? So our schools and church and our family and all of these people, teachers, they are all instilling us with code and programs. And really, what is code? If you think about it, it's just a big set of rules, like rules that say this equals that. Rules that define what we're running on for the rest of our life. And those rules are really, really important because they really shape the way every experience is viewed when we grow into adulthood. So when you think about, if I do this, I get love. If I do this, I'm shamed. If I do this, I'm celebrated. This equals scary. This equals hard. This equals successful. This equals I'm a failure. All of these things are being developed by not only our parents and our teachers and all of those people, but every experience, every sensation, every piece of code as we go throughout life. And it's creating all these systems of rules. So I think about raising the next generation, and I think that I want to make sure, number one, I am like a kick butt programmer for my kids, right? I want to be the best programmer. I want them to run on the best systems. They're going to take them not only through like, well, I don't want them to like virus out at 5th grade, right? Well, doesn't work anymore, right? So we're trying to program our kids so that they are sustainable and they're resilient and they can last the test of time and they can make it not only through college, but they have programs that run their entire life. And it's a really great notion to take. But it comes with a couple of problems. If the way we speak to our children becomes their inner voice, that's their code. And 2 big problems come with that. The first is the very language that we use. And I love, anybody has ever told their child to listen? She's not listening to me. He's not listening to me. The word listen doesn't mean listen. It means do what I say. Because the first time my husband said, you don't listen to me, I'm like, oh no, I'm listening. I'm just not doing what you say. It's the actual language that we use, and we have to be very, very careful with the language that we're instilling in our kids and the language that they hear, and to make sure that that language is empowering. If we're using language that is limiting language that tells them stop, don't go there, language that is complaining about our spouse or our boss or the roundabouts or the weather or the government or whatever, that language is limiting them. That language says stop, don't go there. That language says that door shuts. If life is a series of hallways, we want to empower them with language that's going to open the doors, not say, oh, they do it that way. That's the way it's always been. You can't change it, because it shuts off that whole hallway. And the second problem is that what makes us different from a computer is that when we ask ourselves a question, we don't get a 404 error. Our brain always gives us an answer. So if you ask yourself the question, what's wrong with me? It's going to tell you. It's going to give you a giant list. It's not going to say, no, wait, don't ask that question. So the language that we teach and say to them is so very important. Here's the second problem with just programming them with the best code. What if there's a platform shift? What if everything goes to the cloud after we've built this great software? What happens then? What happens if we build them to run on Macs and they enter a PC world? It's our responsibility to program them to prepare to navigate their world, not ours. Their experiences, their language, they don't have the same code that we do. If I hand my daughter this cell phone, when she enters high school, she's going to laugh at me because it's not going to work in her world, right? So when you hear, and the earlier speakers talked about this, the millennials, if you hear people complaining about millennials, well, that's not the way we did it. Well, back in my day. Well, every generation has a back in my day. And every generation has stuff that really worked. So use that code, but combine it with the code that they have to use now. Back in my day, or when I was a kid, or this is how it worked for me. When we say those things to them, it limits their possibilities. It does zero good for them to hear how it worked for us, because they're not dealing with the same variables, so it's not the same experiment. We do have a solution, and that solution is to self-code. And before we teach them how to self-code, it's really important that we know how to self-code. It's really important that we know how to look inside and go back to our programming from our parents that came from their parents and break down that code and see what are those programs running in the background. What are they telling us to do? What are these involuntary programs that tell us to believe what is good and what is bad, and who is good and who is bad, and who's successful and who's not, and who's perfect and who's not? That's all just code. It's all just a belief system. But the thing is if we don't understand how we were coded, if we don't understand how we were wired, we can't drive them to make change. So the best thing we can do is we can teach ourselves how to code, and then we can raise the next generation to self-code. And we can teach them to be self-aware. We can teach them to be self-loving and self-responsible. And when they have those skills, they can not only code anything, they can create anything, they can do anything, and they can change anything. And that is an exciting generation to live in. Thank you, guys.
Don't delay. Get your ticket for the next Sparks event today.